All right, welcome to the Antonov project. So this is something that I'll be doing for Spray Gunner, which will be a lot of fun. I saw the videos that Gerald Mendez did for Createx and Spray Gunner, and he had painted one of these Metal Time Workshop. I don't know what they're called. Are they called puzzles or models? I guess models. They're more models than puzzles, although they certainly are a challenge. So Gerald had painted the train version of them, and he did this amazing ethereal scene on the side of these two cars with Candy 2.0 from Createx. So I was talking with the folks at Spray Gunner, and they asked if I'd be interested in doing one, and they thought they had something that was right up my alley. So it was this wonderful model, and of course this is the Antonov 225, the famous Ukrainian cargo ship. That is just amazing. So this is what it looks like. It's an incredible kit. This is actually, from what I understand, I think this is an exclusive edition kit, and it's again from Metal Time Workshop. And this one is crazy. So the kit, it has 267 pieces. For their difficulty scale, they use a scale from 1 to 8, and this is right at the top at 8. So I didn't put this together. The folks at Spray Gunner did, which is good because this looks like it was quite a chore. It looks like it was fun, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. I can't really do this with my gloves on, but there are moving bits and pieces on this. It's just awesome. The cargo door opens. Very, very cool. So when I talked to Artem at Spray Gunner, he only had one suggestion for this. So of course this is this airplane is iconic for the Ukrainians. Again, there was only one built. It's gigantic. It has done so much. Everything from, it's carried everything. It aided in Russia's space program, carrying components. It even did a lot of relief during COVID, carrying all kinds of stuff. And unfortunately, the only flying version of this was destroyed during the war, or mostly destroyed, almost all. There is another one that they were starting to build that apparently is not in that bad a shape, so that there were rumors that they were going to kind of scavenge parts that they could off of the damaged one and rebuild it. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do that. But in the meantime, we have the model here. So what Artem had asked, the only real request he had was, or two, it was done in Candy 2.0. So Candy 2.0 was a big part of it because he wanted to retain this awesome metal sheen to this model, and also that we use yellow and blue, which are the Ukrainian flag colors, and he wants sunflowers on this as well, which is perfect because sunflowers are yellow. So I wasn't sure what was coming when he sent this, so it was really cool when it showed up. I immediately had an idea for this. So there's a lot going on this, and whoever had put this together had already attached the decals, so I don't really want to mess with that. But there's such a great surface on the top of the wings, and the way it sits on the stand, and I don't want to do this because it locks in, but it sits on the stand, and then it's above the desk or shelf or case that it's going to be in. So you see the wings, the top of the wings, and it's really the largest surface area on here. So I'm going to concentrate on the wings for this. It's just going to work out really well. And what I'm going to do, in addition to, when I saw it, I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen. The wings themselves are all going to be painted, and then there's a great body line as the wings kind of mold into the top of the jet into the cockpit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off the wings. I'm going to mask off this triangular piece all the way up to the front of the cockpit. And then the back side, I'm going to do the same thing. You get these flares that kind of come back, and then this top piece that runs right down to the tip of the tail right here. So all that's going to be painted. Everything else is going to be just the regular metal. And that saves me from having to deal with, all the gears, not getting stuff on the gears, and just in general. As far as the engines, I was thinking about maybe candying the engines too, but again, if I do that, I'll have to take off these decals, and I don't know if I want to do that. So that'll probably be an after kind of idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use FBS tape to mask off the whole bottom of the jet, and then this thing will be ready to start. So there's one other thing that I was hoping to do with this, but I need to kind of do a test run on it first. It would be amazing if I can engine turn where the sky is. So my idea for the painting is have a field of sunflowers basically kind of arch across midway and then go down all the way down here, so that this whole section will be kind of yellows and browns. And then obviously behind the sunflowers would be the sky, and that would give me my yellow and blue. But then I can put some clouds in here too, and just kind of make it look neat. But what would be really, really great is if I can engine turn or put circular scratches in the metal. So when you're looking at with the candy, not only you get this this kind of fractal light movement through the panels, but then on top of that you also get this kind of swirly grain pattern. It would be amazing if I could pull that off. Now, this is an expensive kit. It's a rare kit, so I don't want to just start it and mess around and have it not work and then be in a problem. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to do a little bit of test on that to see if it works. Now the best place to do that is a place where you can't see, and I think that's going to be on the feet of the stand. Even the stand is a little bit bent here, but so I'm gonna grab some. I'm going to make up a little tool to do this, and then I'm going to see if this stuff will scratch. What I'm looking for is this. I'm not sure what this is made out of. If it's aluminum or stainless, it's hard to tell, and I didn't look it up on the website what it's actually made out of. It's probably steel. It feels pretty rigid. So if it's a really hard steel, that it won't take that sanding very well. Aluminum would be great because I know I could get aluminum to spin and have a nice grain in it. But steel's a little bit tougher, and I want to make sure that I get the exact feel that I want. So let's put together some sandpaper, and we'll do a couple little test panels on the underside of this where you don't see. Okay, so here's our stand. And I actually kind of cheated. I started doing this without you guys just to kind of get a feel for what it's going to take to get this done, if it's even going to happen at all. So what I've got is, this is a piece of 220 sandpaper. And what I did was I just took a piece of double-sided tape and stuck it to one side and then cut out a circle. And then I attached this to an old... This is it doesn't matter, but this is a Badger 200 needle and nozzle that I had lying around, an extra. So what I do is I just stuck it on the bottom of that. So now I've got this little spinning tool. So then what I did was I just came over to this thing and I picked a spot that really couldn't be seen, and I just started spinning it. And as I thought, I'm guessing this is some sort of stainless steel, because this is really tough. It's, it kind of shows some of the scratches, but not enough to really make it, make it noticeable. And I don't want to, I could use a heavier grit sandpaper, but I think I'm just going to get a similar result. Even when I just kind of come in here and manually scratch, I mean, it's kind of cool. And it may ultimately be the way to do it, because I can really control where, how the pattern goes, but I'm just afraid that it's not enough. You know what I mean? I don't want it to look unintentional. It's either got to be really bold, like this. You can kind of see it moving there. That's kind of nice. But I'm not sure that I can pull it off evenly across the whole top of the wing. And then you get that kind of stuff. Is it going to really hold up for me? So then I thought, let's introduce some power to this. So this is, just one of the engraving bits from the Dremel, and it's a little bit on the bigger side. So I figured this would be a little bit more aggressive. But what I don't like about this is you can see the mechanical skipping in it, and I don't like that. I don't like that. So let's do a couple other things real quick to see if maybe there is another option here with the power, because power would be nice because it's much more controllable, really. You would think it wouldn't be, but for me it's much more controllable than doing it by hand, meaning actually scratching it with the sandpaper. So let's try this. This is the smaller bit. This is definitely an engraving bit. It's got more of a kind of a diamond texture on it. Yeah, this stuff is really tough. This has got to be stainless. So again, you know, yeah, I could draw in a cool pattern. Just what I would do is I would just keep this small circular pattern going. But I have to decide if I like that. You can kind of see the skipping of the engraving bit. You know, the mechanical engraving. And ultimately though, look it's like not that much difference than the finish that's on there. And I'm not a big fan of that. So there's one other option to try, and I know this isn't going to work, but I got to try it just to say I tried it, and that's the wire wheel. The wire wheel is probably going to, with this stuff being as hard as it is, it's probably just going to polish it more than anything. But again, it's worth a try. Yeah, that's what I thought. It just takes it and it polishes it. All right. All right, so unfortunately, I don't think, you know, again, if there was a lockdown, like, oh my God, that's the best thing ever, then I would do it. But since I'm on the fence and it might look good and it might not look good, this isn't the kit to try that out on. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna just kind of go with the candies, and I'm gonna, you know, alternate the sky with different strengths of blue to really add a lot of interest to it, and then just kind of go with that. I think that's the safest bet. Again, the one thing I don't want to do is take a chance on this thing and not have it work out, because there's no coming back from that. All right, let's move on. So for masking this, there's a lot going on here, but I want to make sure that the bottom part of this really stays clean and no paint or no clear gets on it. The other thing is we got all these great decals on here, so we want to protect those. So what I'm going to use to mask this is a combination of things. So I'm going to use FPS tape, and I'm going to use a little bit of paper too. The paper is going to, well, there's not too much area, like maybe across the wings, it'll kind of, you know, keep all that without having to use too much tape. One of the cool tricks though for saving these decals, this tape is great. It does a great job for masking and all kinds of stuff, but it does got some adhesive to it, obviously, because it's tape. But what I want to make sure is that I don't, when I put this on the model, that I don't rip off the decals when I kind of pull it off. So what I do is I cut little strips of paper that sort of match the decal. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that way what I can do is I can kind of put a little bit of tape on it, so they have a little bit of adhesive on both sides. And now what I can do is I can just mask off right over the decal without worrying about pulling that up. Get it? I mean, well, you get the idea. It does work. All right, I'll show you, for crying out loud. There we go. So now that's on there. Now I can just tape over that and it'll be fine. The other thing I need to do once I get this all masked up, the other side that's actually going to get the paint, this stainless is great, but I want to make sure that all the paint sticks to it. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to spray it with Autoborn sealer, but the transparent, the 6000. It's going to give me a great, you won't even see it on here, but it'll give me a great surface to apply all the paint to. So I won't bore you because it's a lot of, you know, nitpicky trying to, you know, get things covered up. But we'll get this all masked up. I'll get the 6000 on it and we'll be good to go. As a note, it's probably going to take about, I'd say about 3, maybe 4 coats, but probably 3 coats of 6000 to make sure that I've got a nice even surface. And so I will get at this, and then you guys will be right back. Here is our jet all cleared up. It's got all the, here we go, sorry. It's got all the Autoborn sealer on it, and what's neat about this stuff is the Autoborn sealer is really, really clean. You know, there's no haze, there's no weirdness, you can't even tell it's on there. But this surface now went from being just a regular raw piece of metal to something that's really going to accept the paint very well. So what I've done is I've mixed up a concoction of Carib Blue, the Candy 2.0, and the candies need a binder. Think about the candies in Createx's case, and in most cases with candy colors. The blue is just the color. The candy is just the color alone. There's nothing else in it, so it doesn't stick. It's like a paint without binder. So you need to put that binder back in. And the binder that I use for the Candy 2.0 is the 4050, the gloss clear. works really well. And it's a fun system because you can do whatever you want. So you mix up you put your gloss, and then you can add as much candy or as little candy as you want, and then you just reduce it for the gun you're going to be using. So normally I do this in the spray booth, but then you wouldn't be able to see it, and there's no fun in that. So so I'm going to do that right here. It's incredibly important with anything that we spray that you protect your lungs and just your whole body. So doing something like this where it's a little bit, a little bit more broad and I'm spraying across the whole thing, you really want to watch your lungs. Unfortunately, for me, I can't talk and wear a mask at the same time or have it in the spray booth. So we're just going to go for it. I have all the windows open and it's a beautiful day here, so we're going to do it. All right, so the most important thing with this stuff is you can't just flood it on. You can't do one coat with this stuff. You got to let it build up. And I want to build it up anyway because I want to have kind of a cool, effect. The one thing I got to decide first though is all my sunflowers are all along here. And do I want to just candy the whole thing and then paint over it? Or do I want to cut out the sunflowers? And I think I just want to candy the whole thing. And the reason why is because if I cut out a mask for the sunflowers, I run the risk of, I don't want to do an adhesive mask here. There's too many angles. And I don't want to use a hand cut mask because there's too many angles. I won't be able to hold it down all the way, so it's going to bleed underneath anyway. So I'm just going to candy the whole thing and then we'll go from there. All right. So for the candy for something this small, you can use a full-size spray gun, it'd be fine. But to get around and in and out of these angles, I'm going to use the Grex Tritium. And this has a 0.7 millimeter fan cap on it. So this is going to be great for just kind of laying this down. I've pre-mixed this stuff all up. And I've done that because once you mix the 40-50 and the reducer and everything, it's a good idea to let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. It lets all the components kind of melt together, and it really makes this candy work very well. All right, so I'm gonna go for it. So just even coats, try to get all the surfaces here. I don't know, does that go underneath? It does. I have to be careful with this because of this area under here. Okay, let's give it a go. That's it. Okay, so now I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to let that cure. Hopefully you can see that in the camera. It's very subtle. It's turned from that silver to a really pale light blue, steel blue. This is going to get much more intense as we go, and it's each layer of the candy will add to that. And because I've got a good amount of 40-50 in here, this stuff is very transparent. Meaning, that when I put a layer on, it's not going to be very dark. And I want that. I want to build it up slow so that I can really control this color. I want a real brilliant sky blue. All right, so you guys are going to travel through time because I'm not going to have you sit here and watch paint dry with me, but I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Time travel is a wonderful thing, huh? 10 minutes later. Okay, so this is all cured, and I'm going to hit it again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this second coat. And basically all the coats after this are going to be the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys the second coat, and then I'm going to finish getting the Kerry blue on this, and then we're going to go on to the next step. So it's probably going to take a few coats to get it to the really like sky blue that I want. But again, you guys don't need to hang for all the coats. They're all pretty much the same. All right, let's do this. Gosh, this is so cool. I love candy. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so that's, oh my gosh, that looks great already. A little bit more. So what I'm looking at is, as I'm getting this kind of built up on here, I just want to kind of keep the color real even across the jet as I'm doing this. And there we go. So I'm going to let that dry. And then when you guys come back, this is going to be all done as far as the curry blue. And then we're going to switch to a maybe midnight blue, I think, to get the the fade from the sky. But already that's like awesome. All right. When we come back, curry blue will be all done. Be right back. Okay, welcome back. So you guys didn't miss much. I only needed 2 more coats on this, but how just beautiful is this? I just want to leave it like this. It is amazing, right? So the thing with the candies, you have to be patient, but the effect happens pretty quick. So you saw the first coat, you almost couldn't even see it. The second coat was okay. The third coat was like, oh wow. And then the fourth coat was like the finish. So really is amazing. So what I want to do now is I want to get kind of a darker fade from the top down. So like you're looking up at the sky, the sky gets darker blue as you look up. So in order to do that, I took my curry blue mix and all I did was add a little bit of candy midnight blue to it. And that gave me a nice dark blue. So we're going to try this. We'll see if it's dark enough. I think it is. I don't want this effect to be crazy, but I do want it to kind of be, kind of there. So again, all this area here is going to be sunflower. So I really am just kind of concentrating on the cockpit and the front end of this plane. And a little bit on the wings, so not too much. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry a little bit. Yeah, I want this front end of the plane to be like deep, deep blue. Okay, so you get the idea. So I'm just kind of fading it down onto the rest of the jet. Same thing here. Like you can't just spray this until it's the color you want, like paint. You got to let it build up layer by layer so that those candies have a chance to cure on there with the 40-50. So I'm going to let that sit. I'm probably going to put about, I don't know, we'll see. I bet like 2 more coats will do it on the front end of that. And that'll get me really like nice and deep blue. All right, I know there's a lot of time travel in this beginning part, but once we get to painting, it'll be pretty solid. Be right back. And we're back. So this is all done. Like I said, man, I just want to leave it like this. This is great. So there's the midnight blue on the top, and that gives you my gradation from the top to the, the deep sky to the more horizon line. So we are good. Okay, so now you would think we just are ready to jump into paint, but there is a thing about candy colors that you got to know if you're using them. So candy colors are an ink-based or a dye-based product. So there's no real like thick pigment in them. So what happens is that dye can bleed through to other layers of paint. So if I paint a bunch of clouds on here, that blue from the candy will bleed into the white and turn it into a pale blue. In this case with the clouds it'd be fine, but if you're doing something where you need something brilliant white and you do that, it's a problem. So there's a way to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that's by putting a barrier on it. And the barrier that I use is the 40-40 bleed checker. And this just acts as that barrier between the candy and the other paint. So think about it like, you're at a cookout and you're eating a hot dog and or a hamburger and you get ketchup on you. It just drips off and lands on your shirt. So it sits on your shirt, it makes a stain, but basically sits right there, Now think of the same thing if you're sitting there and the pen that's in your pocket explodes. So with the ink in the pen, that won't just sit on the top. That's going to bleed into the fabric, soak into the fabric and just, saturate it. So that's the same thing with candy. Candy will do the same thing. It'll bleed into the colors above and below and kind of make a mess of things. So the bleed checker really does a great job. It's like putting just a protective coat over the whole thing and making sure that my clouds are going to stay brilliant white. It's basically just spray out of the bottle. I'm going to use the same tritium to kind of apply it. I'm not going to do this with you guys because, again, it's just me spraying clear that you can't really see and you have to let it cure, so it's more time travel. You're going to have to time travel anyway because I'm going to get it all on there. And once I get the bleed checker on there, then I'll be ready to paint and it'll be all set. All right, I will spray this and I'll be right back. Okay, the bleed checker is all cured. One quick note about bleed checker when you use it though, and if just to make sure you're ready for it. Bleed checker has kind of a matte finish to it, so when you go to put this on your bright shiny candy, it's going to look almost satin. Don't worry about that. When you clear it, that satin goes away. So if you clear it with gloss clear, all that satin goes away and it just becomes crystal clear and gloss again. All right, so that's all set to go. It's all ready to rock. Put our jet here. So what I've done in Photoshop, the second element of this, or the main element of this, is just a bunch of sunflowers in a field. So I went in Photoshop and grafted a bunch of sunflowers together, and this is going to be kind of the run for what we're going to do. So I just kind of glued a bunch of them together. I'm going to, it's just reference. I'm going to adjust everything and make it all work. But what I want to do, just to kind of save myself a little bit of aggravation in figuring things out, is I just cut out the sunflowers. So this will help me put the clouds in. It'll allow me to just do this so that I'm not putting clouds where they don't need to be. Because if there's going to be sunflowers there, I don't have to spend a bunch of time painting clouds. So I want a decent amount of sunflowers on this, obviously, since that's the goal. And we had said this is stainless, but I don't know, man. This feels very aluminum. I mean, because the magnets just do not want to stick to it. So I don't know. It's weird. But it's okay, because we have alternatives to that. So what we're going to do is we might use a little bit of tape. My bleed checker is cured, so I can put tape on it. This isn't to like actually mask things off. Again, this is just to kind of keep me in the right spot as far as the clouds go. So yeah, so we're going to, let's use, I have magnets holding the jet here on the board, on the Visionaire. So I'm just going to use the magnets to help me out. This side I'm going to need a little bit of tape though. FBS tape, I think. It's just a little bit of, actually a lot less than that. There we go. So just a little bit of tape just to kind of hold it in place. Again, it's not really a mask. So, I mean, it will mask off some of it as I'm spraying, but it's really, like I said, it's just there to kind of give me a good guide on where to put the clouds. I like it. Okay, that's good. All right, so the clouds I'm just going to freehand in because I don't want a ton of them. I don't want it crazy, but I do want it kind of, I want it kind of in there. I'll move this down a little bit so you can see. Make sure that's reasonably tight. And for the clouds, I'm just going to use opaque white. And that's Createx opaque white. Grab a brush here. For almost all of my painting, since I work on a really small scale, I use a pair of microns mostly. And there's a micron C and then a micron B is what I use. And you'll see the B in a little bit when I do some of the detail. All right. And then for the opaque white, what I end up doing is end up reducing this. So this is reduced 1:1. And it's 1 part 4011 and 1 part opaque white. And that gives me a good drawing white. This isn't the white that you would use to, like, if I wanted this all white, this isn't the mix I'd use. I'd use a heavier mix. I wouldn't reduce it as much. But for any kind of drawing or, highlights or whatever, this 1:1 is what I use. All right, so what do I want these clouds? So to add perspective, to add the feeling that the clouds are moving away, the bigger clouds, clearer clouds need to be near the top, and then they kind of get smaller. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go for it. Light source, pretty much straight from above. Okay, that works. What I'll do is I'll do this one from far away, and then I'll zoom you guys in when I get to another one, just so you can kind of see a close up. So there are 1,000,001 ways to do clouds. For this project, it's just going to be fun to just kind of freehand them in, but you can use stencils and bits of, like ripped paper or cotton to kind of make that, that cloud edge. Like I said, there's a million and one ways. For this project, freehand makes the most amount of sense because there's so many, angles on this jet. I got to be able to move around. If I had just a cloud template, it'd be so hard to like wrap it around this thing and get it to work. I mean, I could use bits and pieces of it, but yeah. And I'm going to use the blue from the candy to be the shadowed side of the cloud. So I'm not going to add any gray or anything, I don't think. Yeah, so we'll have a big one here. Put a couple more down on the wings. And I'll zoom in when we get down to the wing ones so you can see it. Where do I want to stop this guy? I don't want to get to here, so we'll start to bring this cloud in under here. So as I was talking about too, you see how bright white that is? If I didn't have that bleed checker on here, all of this white would be turning into a pale blue because that candy would be bleeding right through. So that bleed checker, as soon as you buy the candies, buy yourself a bottle of that bleed checker as well. Sometimes you're not going to use it. Like if you just wanted this jet blue, jet blue. If you wanted this, just paint this candy blue and clear it, then you don't have to put bleed checker on it at all. It's just really if you're going to be putting another, color on top. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this jet, prop it up a little bit, and we're going to get you guys closer. Cool. Okay. There's my first cloud. So now I'm going to move things around again, and then we'll get some more clouds going. Okay. All right, so I got to finish, obviously, this one here. And I got to, also the blue rolls around the front of the wing, leading edge of the wing, so, and also on the sides here too. So it's too goofy for me to try to pick this up and get the camera to work with this because it won't focus. So I'm just gonna kind of do the same. These two up here are done. So I'm gonna do the same thing to kind of finish this up. The clouds will be all done and they'll be ready to move on to the sunflowers. All right, clouds are all done. See what I mean? They like go up and over like little bits and pieces here. So, and they wrap around. So it was easier than just trying to do this while you guys are watching. So I finished it up. Okay, next thing up is to kind of set the base for the sunflowers. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna block them in basically. So this area here, I really like that the flowers kind of go at a diagonal across the jet here. They're level this way. But the way the flowers are, they just kind of trail up. So what you're seeing down in here is the stalks and you know the kind of dark area underneath the flowers, and here it's all flowers. So I like the way that kind of works. It'll give it some dynamic when you look straight at the top. It just won't be like a band of flowers across it. All right, so what I got to do is I got to knock this down. And, you know, anywhere where you kind of, well, it's really only spot here and a little bit here and here. You're going to see that ground underneath, so I'm going to do that first. So what we're going to do for that is mix up a brown, just a regular Createx brown with a little bit of black. It's Wicked Brown, which is 0010. Mix up a little bit of that. And it's this Wicked Brown is like, think of it like milk chocolate colored. So it's a little bit too light for what we need to do here. So I'm going to add a little bit of opaque black to it. So there's the Wicked Brown in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of opaque black to darken that up. I'm also going to add a little bit of reducer and 40-50 to this. So I pre-mixed the 40-50 and the 40-11 just to make it easy. So it's 1 part 40-50 to 5 parts reducer. So I like doing that when I start over-reducing stuff by adding 40-50, and it's just like the candies. When I over-reduce the paint, it becomes weak because I'm reducing the percentage of binder in it, the stuff that actually makes it stick. So by adding that 40-50 into it, which is basically like the clear binder, it just restores that. It makes it more transparent, but it still works. That's a nice dark brown. That's perfect. Do I want to do that? Yeah, I'm going to do down here on the, you can't barely see it, it's on the bottom, but I'll move things around as we go. I'm used to doing videos of little, you know, panels that I don't have to keep moving the camera around because this thing is really wonky shaped, but it's cool. I mean, it's wonky shaped compared to what I usually paint. It's not wonky shaped at all. It's a cool jet. All right. These flowers are just generally cut out. Some of them I have the actual petals cut out, like the bigger ones and the ones in front. But these ones in the back, I just kind of cut around them because I'm going to be doing a lot of hand painting with that anyway. So again, this isn't supposed to be like a perfect, accurate cutout of these flowers. It's just something to kind of block the bulk of the paint from going where it shouldn't go. Nice light coats because I'm looking to cover this blue here. So the other option too would have been to somehow, I would have to use an adhesive mask, which is a pain in the butt with all these edges and angles and stuff. But to adhesive mask this so that I could just spray it. But it's, you know, for me it's easier to just use the cutout. Do I want to go down there? Yeah, I do. A little bit on that edge. So again, with this stuff, it's light layers will do it. If you go crazy with it, it'll just pool up and make a mess. But it is definitely working. Watch, I'll move this. See how different that is. I mean, it definitely works. It's just, like I said, you got to be patient with it. And I don't care if some of the blue ultimately shows through. This is going to be so dark that it's not going to make too much of a difference. Plus, there's a lot of green in here too, so the blue and the green go together. So I'm not worried about that either. Lovely. Let's see what we got. Good. Good, 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 good. Coming together. Oh, what was I going to do down here? Oh, shoot. That's the whole point, right? Line this up. There we go. It's not bad. So I'll move this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to hold this one by hand. I'm not going to tape this or anything because I can wing this. Get this to work. The flowers themselves. Okay, so the flowers obviously need to be yellow. The inside of the sunflower is like a brown color, so I don't have to. When I'm blocking the yellow for the flowers, I can also just include the middles. That's fine. And I think for sanity's sake, I'm going to have to take these in bits and pieces because I could cut out a mask of all the flowers, but to get that held down in the right way, it's going to be a bear. So I think I'm going to cut them out in bits. I'm going to show you a little bit of the cutting, but then I'm just going to do the cutting because again, you don't want an hour and a half of me cutting out stencils. I'll do the small group right here. So what I'm looking at is, again, I'm going to include the centers if, you know, because if not, I'd have to like find a way to mask these off. And again, these are just going to be brown and they're going to sit on top of the yellow anyway. So I'm okay just spraying the whole flower yellow and then adding the center on. So what I use is just a number 11 X-Acto blade, just really nice and sharp. And now, as opposed to the other cutout that I did to block in the sky and everything, this cutout is going to have all the little petals, or as many as I can cut out, you know, because the more I cut out here, the easier it is when I get to just paint them in. Okay, there you have it. So you can check on the back. So this is a great trick too. So if you flip it over on the back and you start to pull, there's a lot of cuts on this. So if you start to pull this out and it doesn't want to go, if you flip it over, you can really see where you missed, you know, the cut. If it's the other side, it's sometimes difficult to tell. I'll be a little bit too nice to this. I don't have to be super nice. And there you go. All cut out. Now I'm going to hold on to this cutout or this template because I can use it for the other stuff too, the other flowers, like especially over here. So let's block in this flower and I'll show you what it is. And then once I do this, what I might do is I might, since you've seen what the blocking in looks like, I may just block in the rest of the flowers. So that, again, you don't have to sit and watch me cut a zillion flowers. Let's grab our jet and we'll put this in and I'll show you what it looks like. Assuming this flower is where? Now I gotta remember. There we go. It's right there. Okay, good. I want to be really careful of this edge over here. I'm going to take care of that in a second. I may give that a little bit of help. I am definitely going to give that a little bit of help. A little bit of help meaning I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to add to this side, because if I spray this right here, I'm going to have a nice yellow line right there. I want to make sure that doesn't happen. I've added a little paper on here just to keep things honest. All right, so for this, I just need another little piece of tape. Again, I'm not going to use this. This is definitely a stencil now, you know, something that's going to block paint from going where I don't want it to go. But I also don't need to, you know, again, I don't need to nail this down. So I'll figure out what it's supposed to be. About here-ish, yeah. I'm going to use a little bit of tape to hold that down. No, not wonderful. That's what I mean about a three-dimensional surface. It's even tough to get this one little guy down. I'm not going to be able to tape it, so I'm going to have to hold it while I spray it, which is fine. All right. I don't mind that. Okay. So again, opaque yellow. I think for this, for the sunflowers, I'm going to use opaque Hansa yellow. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it too. So Hansa yellow, the opaque is nice. The Hansa yellow is a little bit warmer, I think, than the bismuth yellow. The bismuth yellow seems to have a little bit of green in it, which is good, but not for sunflowers. So again, I'm going to reduce this a little bit with the 40-50, 40-11. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to it as well. And the white just kind of helps brighten it up a little bit. It's not so like, you know, in your face yellow. Let's see what we got. Okay. Again, I'm looking for total coverage, but I can't just blast this on here. I can't just hose it down. Gotta be real slow with it. Okay, so there is another option here too. I'll show you what that is. So I think that's good, but I think I'm going to have to just spend a lot of time building that up. So we're going to give that a little bit of a jump start. And what the jump start is we're going to spray it with white first. I'll show you how, like, let me peel this back real quick and I'll show you what it looks like. So it's still very green. It will cover, but it's going to take a while for that to build up. See how it's still kind of pale green? I'm just going to add about, 6 or 7 coats and, then it'll kind of catch up. But I can expedite that process and also use a lot less paint by first basing it with white. So again, this is another instance. If I didn't have that bleed checker on there, no matter what I did to these sunflowers, they'd always have a tint of green to them because the blue would just come right through whatever color it was, white or the yellow. So now that it's got the base of white on it, if I switch to the yellow now, slide this back up again. So now when I go over with the yellow, just going to get to that bright yellow a lot faster. All right, so I'm going to keep working on this. What I'm going to do is when you guys come back, which will be in a second, peel this off here so you can see it. So when you guys come back, all the flowers are going to be based in. All the yellow will begin and we'll be ready to go. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I've got all the yellow kind of based in. Actually, I've got the yellow based in. There's a couple things that came up that I wanted to kind of show you though. Well, one was just a decision type of thing. So I was looking at the clouds. I liked them, but I wanted a little bit more punch, a little bit more realism to them. So what I did was I added a little bit of this gray blue to them, and then I popped up the white. So these clouds up here are all done, and what I figured I'd do is I'd show you what I did with these clouds here. These clouds, I added the grayish blue to them already, so I'm just going to clean them up with the white. Yeah, they just kind of hung there, and once I got the strength of the yellow in, I'm like, they don't really pop the way they should. So So that's why I decided to add the weight of that blue-gray to it. So now it's just a matter of going back in over those details and pulling the light back out. So we'll do this cloud. I'll finish the rest of them after, because it's basically the same idea, where I'm just kind of adding those bright details back in that I've got the gray blue all over. And also kind of fading them out a little bit. So I had a lot of the background showing through the clouds, which made them, again, didn't give them enough punch. They looked like they were just kind of transparent when I first did them. So I don't want that. I want them to be fluffy clouds. Yeah, see, much better, much better. Okay, there's something else I wanted to point out too. If you notice right here, there's a green squiggly line, and then there's kind of a greenish line right here. That's what happens if you don't have the bleed checker on it. So I didn't hit the bleed checker strong enough right at that point, and you could see the blue coming through the yellow. No matter how much white or yellow I put on this, that little green squiggle is just going to keep coming through. Now in the end, it's not going to make a difference because there's going to be all kinds of stuff over it. But if you just painted your yellow over the candy without the bleed checker or the Autoborn Sealer Transparent, you're going to get that green color all the time. I mean, this looks yellow, but if I didn't have the bleed checker on it, this would be bright green. I mean, it would be that noticeable. So when you're using the candies, you really want to have a good barrier coat between what you're doing with the candies and then what you're doing with paint on top of it. Again, if you're just candying something, you don't really have to worry about that bleed checker. All right, speaking of the candy, I do have some overspray in some spots as I was kind of putting in the white and the yellow. So there's a way, I mean, I can't really, you could try to erase it or wipe, you wouldn't want to wipe it off because, you know, you'll run the risk of smudging stuff and getting all kinds of mess. So what I like to do in an instance like this where the overspray is just kind of like a light glow, it's not really that obnoxious. What I'll do is I'll take some of that Kerry Blue candy and then just kind of take the curse off it a little bit. Now, ultimately it won't matter for the image because it'll actually just make the flowers look like they're glowing, which is fine. But if I want to kind of lessen that, I've just got a little bit of Kerry Blue mixed with 4050, and then I can go in like really just softly around the edges. I want to be careful not to get on the yellow, obviously, because it'll turn green. But just where the overspray is, I just kind of like run around this thing a little bit and blend it up a little bit into the sky. And that'll kind of take, like I said, it takes the curse off. There's not enough of the overspray. I mean, again, the overspray is opaque. Technically, it's really thin, but it is opaque. So it's going to kind of block the metal underneath, but again, so subtly, it doesn't, you know, it's not going to really matter. And again, I just want to make really careful sure that I'm not getting this anywhere on the yellow, because like I said, it will turn immediately green like that. As far as the brown, which is just off camera here, which we'll get to in a little bit, like, oh, here's a good one right here. So there's a lot of overspray on the brown. That doesn't matter because I'm going to be painting all the, you know, the stalks and the ground under there and everything. So I don't have to clean that up. It's going to clean up when I fix it. All right, so let's switch the camera around and we'll get to the next step. The next step is going to be to block in the centers of all these flowers. Once we get the centers blocked in, meaning the base bottom color of that brownish circle in the middle, then I can start working on the other stuff, the details. But yeah, it's coming together really well. So the brown that I'm going to be using to base the centers will also be used to clean up, you know, some of other areas too. So I've went and pre-cut all the centers here. These might not lay out exactly where they are in the cutout, but I don't use the cutout that way. It's just more of a, just kind of a general thing. Like if I kind of put the center one in here, oops, let me get the magnets set up so we're not falling everywhere. There we go. So if I get the center one set up, like where it should be, wherever it's going to be, I don't know, here-ish. So you can see all these over here don't really line up, but that's fine. That they don't have to. The other thing is I don't want this to overspray everywhere either. So, all right, so let's mix up a color. It's going to be a real dark brown, and I'll just use Createx Wicked Brown and a little bit of opaque black. What I will do is we'll spray this in. I'll spray the big one in, and then I'll just go off camera and spray the rest of them. So again, you don't have to really hang for every single one of them. You'll get the idea. All right, so I'm lining up like these petals over here that are right. Make sure they're pretty close. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect at all. There we go, that's good. And I'm concerned, I want to make sure that I don't get overspray everywhere. If I get a little bit of overspray, it's fine because there's going to be shading on all the petals anyway. But again, I don't want to go crazy with it. I don't want to have to clean up all kinds of stuff. Again, real light layers. If I can, I work with the cutout. It's like this instead of like this, because if I go like this, then the air gets underneath and I get overspray. So I try as much as I can to go with the template. And I'm concentrating mostly on the edge. I don't really worry too much about the middle because I can freehand that. What's nice about working with the base coat too, you see how nice that brown looks with the yellow underneath? It's just one of the nice things about working on, like a colored ground essentially, meaning the flowers, So if I was just kind of blocking this off and it was white, this brown would be brilliant. It wouldn't be like this natural yellowish brown color that it is. This top edge has a lot going on. I'll show you in a second. Okay, yeah, so this top edge has a lot. These two, whatever these are, these ridges here, and then where the wings kind of connect to the body and all that. There's a lot of edges and curves and stuff. So instead of trying to get the template to go in there, it's easier to just freehand those edges, those little edges. And again, the nice thing about flowers is they're very organic anyway, right? So it doesn't, I don't have to be super perfect on everything. Same thing on this edge right here. This is tough to get with the template. I have to go left-handed for this. I can't put my head in the way of the camera. Nice, 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 nice. So again, with the center of this, I can just freehand it. It's better that I freehand it than I rely on the template, because what happens is a lot of times when I'm doing like the center of, especially a bigger cutout like this, I'm just holding it in place and I'm spraying the middle. That's when you get all the overspray around the outside edge, because you're not really holding on the edge, or I'm not. So it's nicer to freehand it. That way you're conscious. I'm conscious of, you know, not getting everything in there. So what's good about this is I'm going to save this color. I'm going to do the rest of the centers without you guys because it's basically just the same thing. But the difference is, like, instead, like I was talking about, where I have this here and this one now doesn't line up, I'll just physically line this one up so it's in the right spot, like there. And then I'll start putting it in. So it's really easy that way. All right, so I'll do the rest of that. I'll get all those centers in. I'm going to save this color because this color is going to be what I'm going to start laying out the petals with. So, and doing the background. So this dark brown is going to be a good color. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cover on this. I usually don't work with a cover on the end of my brush or the top of the cup, but I'm going to put one of these cap plugs in here. And that's going to help allow the paint not to dry because this will be in the brush for a while. So this just slows it down. All right, I'll put the rest of these centers in. We'll be right back. The centers are all in, so they're all blocked in and ready to go. It's really starting to come together now. You're really starting to get a feel for how it's all going to look. One quick note about the bottom here, cleaning up. This is kind of what I was talking about. So this is the same brown that I had for all this stuff up here. And what I'm going to do to kind of take care of that overspray down here, it's really easy. I just end up drawing it in reverse. Now, I can use a template to kind of block that off, but I'm going to run into the same problem. If I block it off with a template to get the brown in, then I'll get brown overspray on the yellow. So I don't want that. So I'll end up just freehanding this to get it cleaned up. Another quick note too, you know, the green that's kind of, I said, was bleeding through, it's not going to make a difference in the end because there'll be all kinds of shading on that. But if that was going to be a problem, say I needed that to be bright yellow, what I would end up doing is at this point I would respray the bleed checker or the Autoborn Sealer 6000 on that, put a few coats on it, let it dry just in that area, just kind of blend it out. And then let that really cure. Once that's cured, then I can go over with the yellow and it won't bleed through. So that's the fix for that. If you needed to, like I said, I'm not going to because there's going to be shadowing there and everything that's even has a little bit of green mixed into it. It's going to be fine. All right, so the next step here is to throw in some of these leaves, because let me pull this down a little bit so you can see the whole thing, or most of it anyway. I really love it. You get these dark areas here. Actually, let me switch cameras or move this out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. Well, out a little bit anyway. All right. So yeah, so once I get the green in, so I really love the way the composition is going here. You got the, you know, kind of the tips of the jet wings are you know, just kind of non-flowery. So that we get the flowers kind of going across it. I love that the way it kind of starts here and then kind of trails off across here and goes up at an angle. So everything is going good. But I do need something here. I just can't leave it like that. I mean, I could, but it becomes more graphic and I don't really want that. So I'm going to indicate really lightly. I don't want to go nuts here, but I want to indicate some of those leaves. And because I want to just indicate them, I'll just freehand them in because they're going to be subtle. And I'm going to kind of base them in the same way that I've done all the other stuff. So I'll first base the leaf in, and then I'll put a little bit of detail on it. Not a ton, just enough. So my go-to green for natural type stuff is detailed moss green. I love this stuff. It's 0059. Just a really nice color. So what I'm going to do to kind of get this to stand up a little bit is to put the moss green in with a touch of white. And the white will help it stand up. I really don't need a lot. Maybe just a drop of this pre-mixed white. Put some reducer and 40-50 in it again, because most of the natural colors, the organic colors like greens and browns and earthy colors from anyone really, the pigment seems to be a lot heavier than some of the other colors. So that usually requires a little bit of reduction. And what I come out with is this really neat, almost army green. Now again, I want something reasonably subtle. I don't want all the leaves to be like the main thing here. So what we have is just some stems. Let's get the spray. First I'll see what it's like. I may have to add a little bit of white to this, but I'd rather have to add white than to, you know, remix it. So we'll start with one of the stocks and see what it looks like. Looks pretty good. Probably need to lighten it a little bit. Let me put a leaf in and see what that looks like. Again, I went on the darker side. I'm going to add a little bit of detail to this after, but I don't want it too in your face. This might be all right. I don't know if you can even see it. Yeah, you guys can barely see it. Do I want to pop it up a bit? Just a hair. So I'm going to add one more drop of white to this. Let's see what it looks like. The white will definitely, I mean, you'll be able to see it on this next one, because when you add one drop of white, the white is really strong. Even reduced, the way I have it 1:1, it's still strong. You'll see it now. But it's okay, because say I go too light with it, I can always just tone it down with the details too. Good, that's going to work. Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right, so now it's just a matter of kind of freehanding these leaves shapes in. I can throw in some stems in here. Just kind of randomly. I want to make sure that I keep the bulk of this dark, because I really want this to be subtle. I don't want your eye to be drawn down here. But I also don't want to leave it just as a brown, you know, a brown field. So we'll add some leaves and some stalks, and again, really general, just kind of block it in. I'll add a little bit of detail in a second on these. That's great. There's another spot right here that has the same thing going on. Lovely. Down here. Again, nothing crazy, just enough to kind of put something there. Oh, there's a spot in here too. Good. Okay, so for the detail for this, again, it can't take much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add the light details, and then if it needs it, I'll add some dark details. The dark details are just going to kind of enhance it a little bit if it needs it. But I'm going to lighten this way up, so I'll add 2 more drops of this. Let's go 3. Let's go for it. And again, this white is pre-reduced, so I don't have to add any reducer to this. Just add the white, and it does everything. For those who missed it, I pre-reduce it. I put the reducer in it. You don't buy it pre-reduced. All right, so this is really light. So now what I want to do is just pick out the, you know, the leading edges of these flowers. I mean the petals, sorry, or the leaves. Anywhere I think the light's going to hit it. And I want to kind of, you know, I want to keep this under control. I don't want to go nuts with this, because if I cover everything I did, then it's not going to, I mean, it's just going to be a mess, you know. So just add those pops of, you know, highlights where they need to be. But again, I want this to be in the background. I want this to be secondary to all the flowers. So little details, some stuff. That's nice. That's nice. Good. The other important thing with this, because I've added a lot of white to this, I really want to make sure that I put this right, you know, only on the green that I just sprayed. If I put this color on the brown, since there's more white in it than green, or there's a lot more white in it than the last color, it'll actually shift to kind of a blue color on the brown. So I don't want that. So I want to keep it on the green so that it's just really enhancing that last thing that I did. There we go. That's perfect. See, it's just subtle enough. You know, it doesn't drag your eye out to the end of the wing, but it gives you something there. I'm going to sign this here too, by the way. So I want to leave that relatively untouched, I guess. Okay, so let's say that all came out great. I'm fine. I'm happy with that. But what would happen if, like, you put too much on, or you didn't like something that you put on? Basically, that's where the darker color comes in. And I'll do a little bit of it even though it doesn't need it, just so you can see it. But it's nice. It acts kind of like an eraser. So I'm just taking all this stuff out. I'm going to use black just because. But you can mix up a dark green if you want to, like, not run the risk of kind of screwing it up. But say I needed to clean up some of these edges. So I'm just going to use a reduced black. We're back to this one. There we go. So say I want to, like, sharpen up these edges, like I put too much green on, or there's overspray, or whatever the case may be. Oops, that's spraying by itself. Don't want that. So now with the black, and it's highly reduced black, it's 1 part paint to 10 parts reducer. I can go back in here now on the edges. Or, you know, if you really wanted to get it super sharp, you could use a template. So the thing with the reduced black is that it's really transparent when it's reduced like this. So you can get away with using straight black, especially in an instance like this where it's really dark. So, I mean, you don't want to, like, go nuts, but if you need to just make minor adjustments, it's a great way to go. Or, like, if there was a, you know, specific detail in here that I wanted to get, like where this leaf crosses over this stem, and I wanted to kind of indicate that shadow on the stem behind it. You know, things like that. Just adds a little bit of coolness to it. Cool. All right. We are at the point we can start working on the detail on the petals. Let's move this a little bit. Get back on the center one. I'll show you on the center one so you can see what's going on. And then, like I said, I will probably just kind of knock out the rest of them. Now the thing is when I'm done with this stage, we only have a little bit of highlights and some details, and then this guy's done. So in this instance, it came together really quickly, which is nice. Okay. Again, we're dealing with this complex three-dimensional object. If this was a flat panel, if I was doing sunflowers on a canvas or a board, I could use cutouts really easily because they'll lay flat and they'll give me a nice edge. Using cutouts here is not really, or even regular adhesive stencils, it's going to be a bear. So I'm not going to be able to get that done that way. So I'm going to have to freehand everything, which is fine. So if your freehand airbrush skills maybe aren't as great, you can also use paintbrush to kind of get the stuff in. And I'll show you a little bit of that too. Okay, paintbrush. So I got to put in, like, the details on these sunflowers, the petals themselves, and that's what will really make this thing pop and make it look cool. For most of the paintbrush work I use a watercolor brush. This is a Winsor & Newton Series 7 watercolor brush, and this particular one is size 00 or double aught. They come in all different sizes, but this is the size I use a lot. So say your airbrushing skills aren't quite as honed as you would like them to be to do, like, the real fine, like, edges and stuff like that. You can always use a paintbrush to start it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same brown color, and I have a little bit of black here too, because that's what I mixed up for the shading color. But I'm going to use a little bit of brown and just a touch of black, and I just have it on a palette. So what I can do with this, with the paintbrush, is first I can lay out, like, where the airbrush is going to kind of put in the shading, the details. So where the edges are really tough to do, tightly with an airbrush if you're getting your skills up. This is a nice way to do it so that you can get it started. You don't have to have like perfect airbrush control to get it done. Now as you kind of get into it, your airbrush skills will kind of catch up and get to where you want. However, I still use a paintbrush all the time, because there's just some things that the paintbrush or the airbrush can't do, and actually there's things that the paintbrush can't do. So, I love to blend the two tools. All right, so I've got those kind of edges in there now. I'm going to have to reduce this a bit, I'm thinking. So this is again that same dark brown color. I'm going to see if I have to reduce this. See how it sprays. All right, so these petals up top are all in the shade, which is nice. So what I can do now with the airbrush is now I don't have to get right to that edge because I've already got it in with the paintbrush. So I can just kind of float in close to that. Yeah, I'm going to have to reduce this a little bit, but it's worked fine for now. So now as I kind of get close to that paintbrush line and blend that in with the airbrush, now that becomes a really hard edge. It looks like I used a template or a stencil. So you kind of mix the tools a little bit and it'll really help you out a lot. And learn all your fundamental airbrush strokes. What I'm using is a lot of dagger strokes right now, little dagger strokes. So I'm starting near the center of the flower and then I'm just kind of trailing it off like this. So again, I'm going to have to reduce this because it's not, spraying super well for this, but for now it's working. That. Ta-da! All right, so what I want to do really quick though, no, there really aren't. What I was looking for were highlights on these petals. It doesn't seem to reflect very much light, these petals, which makes sense. They want to pull in all the light they can. But if there were any highlights on this, like lighter yellow, like on leading edges or whatever, I would do all that now. And the reason why is because if I go to put a whiter highlight on top of this brown, again, because of the blue shift in the white, it'll turn those highlights blue. But I don't think I have to put too many highlights, and if I do, it'll be subtle. All right, so what I'm going to do is, what do we want to do here? Yeah, I'm going to move things a little bit, and I'm going to set up, and I'm going to see if I can do a time lapse of a bunch of these flowers, just so you can kind of see them all coming together fast. So here we go. What I could do is I could finish this flower, but if I finish this flower and show you how that goes, then I can literally finish the rest of the jet and it'll be done. I think that's probably the way we're going to go, because, what I could do, yeah, you know what? I don't know. All right, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the rest of the petals real quick, and then we'll come back. We'll do this, the center of the flower here, and then I'll finish the rest of the flowers, and then this will be ready to be cleared, so it'll be ready to go. All right, so I will be back in a minute. We'll have all the petals done, and then we'll do the centers, and we'll be in good shape. And there you have it. Those are all the petals done. Okay, the centers of these things. I'll tell you why I'm kind of... So the seeds of a sunflower, if you're familiar with the golden ratio, the seeds follow the golden spiral, which they're very specific, and that's just a evolutionary thing. You need to pack the maximum number of seeds in the circle, right? And nature has done that very well. It produces a very specific spiral pattern, like spiral out. I could just cheese it and do a bunch of dots in the middle of this thing. But this one's right in the middle. I mean, you see it. So I think what I'm going to have to do is do this for real. And what that means is it just takes longer. The other ones in the back are you know, they're kind of, you know, tucked in the back. The seeds are a lot smaller. You can't really see them. So it's really just this monstrous one in the middle. Right, let me zoom you in. I will show you the beginning process of this, but we will not be doing all of it because it's going to take me a while to get this done. Okay. I'm going to do this with paintbrush because it's easier. Well, it's much easier with paintbrush. What am I saying? So I'm going to grab some yellow, some golden yellow, a little bit of white, and then some brown. So I basically want a kind of a lighter brown color. I try a few of these out, you know, if I don't get it right the first time. It's basically like a yellowish tan color for the seeds. Okay. So basically they start in the middle and they move out in a spiral. So what I need to do is I need to get the first line of them done, and then the rest of them will follow after that. So that's it. That's the first one. Other items that follow that golden spiral, like a conch shell, the shape of that, it grows in that same golden spiral. It's a really neat thing. If you haven't checked it out, go to the golden ratio and the golden spiral and all that. Check it out. It's kind of interesting. And again, it's just it's a exercise in efficiency. You know, the conch shell needs to grow in a certain way so it maximizes the animal space. And yeah, sunflowers do the same thing. So you start to see it a lot in nature, which is kind of cool. We'll see how much I want to drag you guys on for this. But I think you get the idea. So it's going to be that all the way around everywhere. And then, you know, once you get the spiral, you know, the pattern pretty much down, it's you know, it's pretty easy. And if you didn't know sunflowers did this, go check them out now. It's like, oh yeah, look at that. Again, this one's right in the middle of the jet. So, you know, I can't just like spray it with dots. That'll look lame. And the other ones, like I said, the other ones are far enough in the back that you can't see really the seeds. So I'm just going to shade them, so that'll be good. Should I time-lapse this, or should you come back when it's done? Let's time-lapse it. Okay, here we go. All right, so I still have the tinting color in here, the brown. So I'm going to use that on this flower real quick. But I'm going to use a darker color to do the rest of them. Like I'm going to add a bunch of black to this, or maybe even just use black. What I'm going to use this for now is just kind of shade the dots that I just put in. And then there's a center indentation in the middle of a sunflower. Again, this is pretty thin and light. I was using it for the petals, so it's not going to like, you know, do much, but it'll do something. There we go. Good. All right, so the black. Because what I gotta do is I gotta make this look more in line with these, because I don't want to do the seeds on all these. Because the thing is with a lot of this, like I know the seeds are there, but you can't really see them as they kind of move back away from us. But if I go and put the seeds in because I know they're there and my brain thinks they're there or knows they're there and just wants to put them in, it'll make them look less real, essentially. So what I do have to do is get this kind of toned down a little bit so it matches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of black. And again, this is really, really thin, so it shades really well. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to shade the bottom as it comes down and also the top a little bit to kind of push that back, and then that little center indentation. The hardest part about this thing is ignoring the shape of the jet. Like I'm concentrating on like the spine that goes down the middle of the jet and then where the wings kind of flare into the body and stuff. And I'm like, I got to ignore all that and just paint the flower. It's weird. Lovely. Okay. And a little bit on the others too. Actually, the other ones, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a little bit thicker black. This is 1 to 10. I'm going to switch to 1 to 5. And this will give me a little bit more punch in these ones that are darker already. I'll do the ones you can see here, and then I'll do the rest of them. We'll jump back because we are actually, no, you know what? Yeah, let's do this because this is the end. We're pretty much there. So with this black, I just want to get, you know, the edge without getting, you know, on the yellow, obviously on the yellow petals. Just black will crush those petals. It'll just make them look terrible. Good. And let me do a couple more of these over here. These don't fall now, boy. These don't need a bunch because most of the bottoms you can't see. So maybe a little bit here to show the center of this one. And center of this one too, you can see. Good. All right, I think we're ready. I'll back you guys up so you can see the whole thing. There we go. Let's sign this. I love it. All right, so signing it. What? I should sign it in yellow, right? Yeah, Yeah, yellow. So this is minor, but it's cool. So I can sign it. I want to pick a color that's in here so it doesn't seem like it just jumps out. Like I wouldn't use red. I mean, you could, I mean, fine, but red doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I want to keep it kind of continuous. So I have the choice of yellow, I have the choice of white, I have the choice of blue, like light blue, but I'm feeling yellow, so we're going to do yellow. So I'm just going to mix up golden yellow and opaque white. Oh, gotta get you guys closer for this. Let's sign right along here. I'm using the wrong brush for this. I just realized, I'm like, wow, this brush seems really heavy. Big, I mean. Because it is. All right, that's better. Awesome. I like it. There we go. Okay, the next step I cannot take you in with. So the next step is to clear coat this. And I'm going to use a little bit of House of Color USC 01, which is a solvent-based automotive clear. And what that's going to do is it's just going to kind of give this whole thing a nice gloss. Now I'm only going to clear the part that I painted. And the reason for that is a bunch of moving parts in the engines of this model. And I don't want to get clear coat all over them and have it just all, glue shut. So I'm just going to do what's exposed here, and it won't take much. It'll take a couple of coats just to kind of seal it up and make it glossy, and then we'll take a look. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so I brought you guys outside to see how it came out in the sun, because that's when the candy really does its thing. So this is all unmasked. We saved all the graphics that were on this, and we ended up with a very, very shiny An-225. So I wanted to throw a huge thank you out for Spray Gunner for trusting me with this. I hope they're going to like it. And I want to thank all of you for sticking with me through this. And I will catch you guys soon. Thanks a lot.